Welcome back to Small College Conversations, presented by our friends at BlueFrame Technology. I'm Jim Abbott. I'm the founder of the business of small college athletics. I'm joined today by Troy Tucker. Troy is the athletic director at Northampton Community College. Troy, thanks for joining us today.
Jim, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I'm excited to have this time together. I think you have a very unique background that folks can learn an awful lot from. I want to start with your start in this business. You started as an athletic director at Jamestown Community College, and your first job in that position was to begin an athletic department. So tell us a little bit about how you got started, and then tell us a little bit about that work of beginning an athletic program.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, I went to a very, very small high school, K through 12, one building, 45 students. It was a public school, small country, backwoods up in New York, and went off to college, unsure what I wanted to do, and kind of got into athletics, working at a Division III school there with intramurals and things, which led to graduate school at Springfield College in Massachusetts. And when I graduated from there, this job at Jamestown Community College was posted, and intramurals, athletics, student life, the whole thing. And I'm 23. It's fairly close to home. Where I grew up, and I said, yeah, that's all me. And interviewed for the job, and so in October of '92, took that position. And at that point, the Jamestown I was at was in Cattaraugus County, which is Olean, St. Bonaventure, that part of New York. And they were a branch campus of Jamestown Community College in Jamestown, New York, which is very close to Erie, Pennsylvania, and about 50 miles apart. And at that point, the Olean campus where I was, that's where soccer was hosted. The other sports played in Jamestown. So students could commute the 50 miles each way to practice. So if you were in Jamestown, wanted to play soccer in Olean, you could drive to Olean every day for practice, and vice versa for baseball, softball, and all the sports the main campus offered. So after the first year of that, I went to the administration. I said, hey, this doesn't really work. I think we could offer our own sports here and kind of break apart and have a separate program and, get some students here on our campus. And, after going through the process and selling it to the right people, we were able to become the Jamestown Community College Jaguars, and they were the Jayhawks, and we actually would compete against them. We were in the same conference. And we started out with basketball and softball, and we started to increase, add a couple sports, soccer and a few other things. But then right after that point, after we got moving, is when I moved on to Uville College in Buffalo. But it was unique, again, doing student life and doing that, and you have to go run student government, and then you're putting on a Valentine's Day dance, and then you're trying to go get ready for a softball game. So but again, you're 23, you think you know everything, and you learned a lot really quick, and I wouldn't change it. I think it makes you who you are today when you get to do all that stuff from the ground up, and it led to a lot of other things down the road.
If you or I were a college president right now thinking about athletics, I can't imagine hiring a 23-year-old to try to do that.
No, and I think I got lucky, that in the fact that, one, it wasn't a job back in 1993 that was paying a lot, but it seemed like it was paying a lot to me. It was kind of an unknown branch campus, and I'm not sure how many applicants they got. I mean, I might have been the only one for all I know, but I look back now, and it worked out in my favor, and it really did give me a lot of background experience that things you still kind of utilize today when you look back, and some things you made mistakes on and people corrected you, and it's something, again, in our day and age now, I don't think none of us probably don't make these mistakes, but again, on the student life side of things, I still remember a faculty member coming to me, and I put up a poster back then. We put up posters because the internet wasn't big, and Christmas dance. And she came to me, and it's the holiday dance, not Christmas. You don't. And so again, you learn. I didn't think twice about it. I wasn't meaning it to be offensive, but again, one of those things, and that stuck with me to today. I still remember that woman, computer science teacher, coming into my office with that poster in her hand, telling me, that's not the right terminology. So, live and learn.
Wow. Well, at the stage you and I are at in our career, know, I don't have stories exactly like that, but I know that I sort of bravely entered into some areas with confidence that was not backed by capability. Uh, Sometimes you just have to believe and do your best and achieve. And I just think that's a pretty remarkable start. You know, you've talked a little bit about the fact that you've been at more than one institution. And so you have been an athletic director actually at 4 different institutions. Talk a little bit about how you try to get started. So when you come into a new position, and I'm going to discount that first one because I think really drinking from the fire hose. But when you start as a new athletic director at a new school, what are the things that you try to do in those early days? Some folks talk about the first 100 days, but you know, what are the immediate areas that you try to get engaged in?
And I think it was different at the different places I went to based on where they were with athletics. You know, the first one, as you mentioned, that was a whole different scenario. I moved down to DeUville College, which was a small private school, 4-year up in Buffalo, New York. And athletics was really a novice type thing there. So it was kind of starting that program from scratch as well. And then moving on to Herkimer County Community College, which was a very well-established, very successful junior college program, very large, up in central New York. So again, kind of those things were a little different, but I think the genesis behind the whole process was trying to meet as many people on campus as possible. Obviously, you always hear people talk about listening, and I think that's important, but I wanted to get their perspective on the program. And so maybe at DeUville, it was like, what do you think this program could be? And where maybe at Herkimer, it was more, you know, what's your view of the program? You know, what could it do better? You know, what are some issues in your mind, whether it be from faculty and, you know, student athletes, their actions on campus, things of that nature. So it was just spend a lot of time. You try to find out who the power brokers are, you know, who are the people you want to meet first, who really could have some influence and help you out. And also try to meet some people that maybe are naysayers, you know, and try to see if you can change their mind and bring them on board with your vision and what you have planned for the program and what you think the program could do for the institution. And, you know, I think that's been vital. You know, one of the things, you know, you'll see posts every once in a while, you know, these days on Twitter or someplace, but it's really true. And I remember this from grad school, you know, it was meeting the physical plant guys right off the bat, you know, and making sure you had them and, you know, that they believed in you. And I've always been a believer, Jim, and, you know, I'm a roll up the sleeves, you know, again, you know, I'm a backwoods country person at heart, and to go out and help those guys and do a lot of the work myself. And, you know, I think that really sold a lot of them at those places. When they see you go out and willing to do it as well, they're much more willing to help you. And, you know, I've tried to keep that, you know, kind of as a, you know, one of the main characteristics or things that I've taken with me at all the institutions is, you know, try to go out and be a part of it and not just stand back. And I really believe that that's crucial and critical that those people see that. And I think they're much more willing to drop what they're doing if you really need them in a pinch to come and help you out.
That's a great. We could do an entire session about inter-campus relationships. It's interesting to me, you know, there's a lot of education that has to happen when you're a new athletic director. So you're trying to get a feel for your coaches and what their needs are and what their challenges are. And then you're talking to higher administration to understand what their expectations are. For me, I always found it interesting because you might hear from a coach, oh, you don't want to deal with Troy because nobody likes Troy, or Troy doesn't like us. But I always felt as a new person in a leadership position, well, I've got an opportunity to maybe mend that relationship. Maybe traditionally we haven't gotten along, but I have that opportunity. And of course, sometimes what you realize is, yeah, they're right. That Troy, he's never going to like us, and I'm going to stay away from him. Well, when I look at your career, I would look at you and I would define you as a small college athletic director. But I can't help but notice that in the midst of stops at relatively small institutions, you also spent 4 years at the University of Maryland, as an associate athletic director. In fact, the 4 years prior to coming to Northampton, you were at the University of Maryland. So what led you to that opportunity at Maryland and a larger Division I institution? And then what kind of led you back to where you're at now?
Well, and this story is, again, I've been asked this a lot over the years because, sometimes it doesn't make sense when people see their trajectory and, how did it happen? And, sometimes people get pigeonholed at certain levels and you want to get out. And I tell people all the time, and I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, but I don't think a lot of younger people out there right now in the profession, in grad school or just starting out, have the aspirations as a young professional to be a junior college athletic director. I think, we've all, what do we see on TV? You say, hey, I want to be in the Big East. I want to be in the ACC. I want to be one of those guys that I see on TV. And once you learn more about it, you understand the different levels and how it works and, what the ramifications are at the different levels and the expectations. And again, when I going up through it at those different places, I've been in it about 13 years and I just really wanted to try to break through it, sent a lot of applications to different places during the time, whether it be at Jamestown, DUville, Herkimer. And ironically, I was at DUville 96 to 99 and applied for the Herkimer job, but also applied for a job at Maryland at that point. Took the job at Herkimer as the AD and had just gotten married in 98. So we moved to Herkimer and bought a house. I start there. I've been the AD at Herkimer for literally 8 days. And University of Maryland calls. It was actually Rob Mullins, who's the AD at Oregon now, calls me and says, Troy, we'd like to offer you the job at Maryland. I'm kind of, I'm in shock. I'm sitting here in my office. I'm like, oh my good, just took this job, been here a week, and went home, talked to my wife, and we're like, well, you just bought a house, the whole thing. The timing was just off by literally, a few weeks. And, told Rob no, I sent a letter to Debbie Yao, who was the athletic director at that point, and just thanked her so much for the opportunity. Gave her all my reasoning and said, I hope that this doesn't hurt me one day. If there's another opening, the timing's better. I'd love to be able to come back and be part of the Terrapin family. And, so kind of questioned it for a little while because you're like, is that chance ever going to come again? But at the same time, Herkimer was a 23 sport program with really good facilities, a lot of full-time coaches. So it gave me a lot of experience in areas I didn't have a lot of experience in because DUville and Jamestown, they're just part-time coaches, didn't really have staff. So really had a chance there to really kind of, increase my toolbox, put some more things in there and learn a lot that I probably just didn't know and wouldn't have staying at some of those smaller places. But then 2004, Maryland's got a couple jobs posted and I applied for them again. And, Jim, I know you're huge into networking and, how important that is. And, whether it be through your organization or NACDA or the different things that we've all gone to. And I had been a pretty regular at NACDA and still am part of NACDA and NATICA. And it was in Dallas that year. And I'm down there in June and I'm down in the lobby at the hotel, get into the elevator to go up to my room. And ironically, I go to push my button and somebody else pushes a button. I look over and it's Debbie Yao. And, and my friend behind me is like nudging me with his elbow because he knows that I've applied at Maryland. And so we go up and I said, Dr. Yao, introduce myself, Troy Tucker. And she, oh, Troy, how have you been? She kind of remembered from years ago. And I said, I just applied for another one of your jobs and, be really interested in working in College Park. And, of course, Debbie's always very busy on the move. And, she gets to her floor and gets out. Great to see you. And she's gone. And we have a couple more floors to go. And my friend, it's the two of us on there and he's like, you blew it. I just remembered him. And so we're laughing about that. NACDA's over, I go back home and literally a week later, I get a call from Maryland. They want me to come and they fly me down and my wife down to interview for the associate AD for administration position and got hired, took the role and loved it. We loved College Park. My wife's family's from Maryland, so it was really a good fit for us. We had 2 kids at that point when we moved there and it was a lot of what I expected, a lot of some things I didn't expect at that level, things that you maybe don't think happen the way they do. I still remember running into Gary Williams the first time in the hallway, and I'd only seen him on TV all those years, and you're kind of like took a step back when you saw him, and you got to know him obviously, and just a great person, and so it really was eye-opening. Learned so much there from Debbie and the other staff. There's just so many great staff members on that staff those 4 years who've all gone on to become ADs at different Division I schools, Division II schools around the country, and it was really a great thing. And we really felt, Jim, honestly, it was going to be there 5 to 8 years and probably get a small Division I job out of that, hopefully, and then kind of keep that ladder going. And one of those things in life, you got thrown a curveball. We had a third child while we were there. He was born in 2005. We had got there in 2004, and we found out that he was autistic. And so it kind of changed our course of life a little bit. We had 2 young kids, and then with him as well. And to Gary Williams' credit, he got us an appointment, helped us get an appointment at Kennedy Krieger, which is a great autism clinic up in Baltimore. And, we were able to get some help, but it was one of those things we had to make a family decision. Obviously that level requires the time commitment is, it's, as people, Debbie would tell you, it's not a 50-50, work-life balance. It's a 90-10 or whatever. And no disrespect meant by that. It is what it is at that level. So we had to make a decision, and, we said, well, let's try to get back to a level where I know I can kind of have a little bit more control over my schedule. We wanted to look around. My family was in New York, hers was in Maryland, and the job at Northampton opened up, and we came and looked at it. I thought it was kind of a diamond in the rough. They were not in the NJCA at that point, but they had some really nice facilities in a great location right on the Jersey border here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So, things fell into place, and 13 years later, I've been able to do a lot of stuff with my kids growing up that I might have missed out upon, during my time. If I was stayed at that level, you don't know for sure, but things have worked out really well. And so it's, there's always those days you look back and you see some of your colleagues get a Division I job, and you're like, you kind of shrug a little bit, but it was great. I love the experience. I've stayed in touch with a lot of those guys. I still go back down every year to a game and still have friends there. And, again, wouldn't have changed it. It was the right decision at the time, and, life happened.
I hear you. I did not know the answer to that question when I put it together, and I'm thrilled to hear it. We face this with students. So many students kind of have this idea of you got to go Division I. I worked a couple of years in Division I, and sort of similar to you. I mean, I actually got out of athletics for a period of time, and it was based on the happiness of my family. And ultimately, that's a pretty dang important thing. And what we learn in life is that it's not just all easy decisions. But I think that's a great story and a great reminder that if you're not able to take care of the rest of the business in your life, then wherever you're at, it's not going to be a very fulfilling experience. So I appreciate your willingness to share that. That's a great story. It seems to me that you, even though you've moved into a position that wasn't going to require as much of your time, you still have a very full schedule, because I know that you're very actively involved in the NJCAA. You're a Region 19 Executive Director. You're a member of the NJCAA Board of Regents. And I wonder if you talk a little bit about the work involved in those positions, and maybe some of the benefits and hardships, if you will, of being involved on a national level.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, I felt that it would be, one, beneficial for our school because we were new to the NJCAA 13 years ago. And so I knew the involvement was something that would be important to help get our name out there. So even if maybe our program wasn't successful right off the bat, people would start to hear Northampton due to involvement in different things. And so that was kind of the initial thrust of it, was to help the institution. Once we got up and some of our programs kind of took off and had some success nationally, and the program started kind of, I don't want to say run on its own, but the coaches were doing a great job. And it gave me an opportunity to go out and take on some more leadership roles that I wanted to do, because I felt I could add something, at this level, and provide some time. And it was really, in our region, we had some leaders who had been there for a long time, and they got ready to step down from the region leadership roles. And so I stepped in and took that over. And we have 31 schools in Region 19. So it's kind of like being the commissioner of a 31 school conference. We have, whatever meetings on an annual basis, and, the rules and protocols and sports codes, and, all the different things that, like any conference anybody's in. And it's, there's days that it's busy. I mean, I oversee the website, and keep the website up to date for our region and things of that nature. And, but it's a great group. COVID has really brought the group together. A lot of people, I think, you would feel like you'd kind of get separated. I think, these Zoom meetings, we started to meet weekly, so it really brought us closer from that standpoint. And it's been good. But as you know, anytime you're in a position of leadership like that, there's going to be days that people don't like you. And, last February, last March, when I made the decision to shut down Region 19 championships, there was a lot of people in the region who didn't like me. There was also a lot of people that said, thank you for making the decision, because now I don't have to make it. You made it for me. So, but that's part of it. And you take that on, and there's good and bad. And ultimately, as long as you feel like you're, making the decision that's best for the greater good, I think you can sleep at night. And so that's been great. The NJCA part is something I've really cherished as well, to get involved at that level, be one of 37 people in the country that oversee the 520 schools, be able to work with Dr. Parker on a daily, weekly basis, and interact with the cabinet level individuals at the NJCA, and be part of the rules and things of that stature at the NJCA level. So it's been really good. It's been good for our institution. The school's been really supportive of it. And, for me, it's kind of that, some of the job here, honestly, is, it's pretty similar day to day. And, this stuff is nice. It's a little more intellectual, and kind of can push you a little bit more on some of the national stuff and make you think, and just a chance to be involved with a lot of people nationally. I enjoy that. I've missed some of the in-person meetings, but, just a chance to still, talk to a lot of people throughout the country on different issues has been very rewarding.
I really encourage people to be involved beyond their campus. I think it takes a little time. You better be pretty comfortable with what you're doing before you spread yourself into other areas. But it strengthens the organization that you're a part of. You're aware of issues earlier in the process, and I admire what you're doing. Now, I say that, and then I think, well, gosh, this year you were selected as the chairman of the NJCA Eligibility Committee. And in any year, I would think that would be a challenging position. But this year in particular, with COVID-related issues, granting participation waivers, making decisions on eligibility standards, take us through what this year has been like for you and your committee regarding eligibility.
Yeah, when they called me in, I think it was August, maybe end of July, they called and said, we've selected you to be the new chair of eligibility for the NJCAA. And, at first it's kind of overwhelmed. It's like, boy, that's a lot. And you feel like you're a lot on your shoulders. You don't want to let somebody down. And, you think, like you said, workload and things of that nature. But I've got a really, really good committee. We've dug into it this year. And obviously COVID is really, we haven't had the ability to do some of the things that I'd like to do. We need to dig into our rule book and our eligibility rules, and be able to really look at those and dissect those, and what could we change to help students and help institutions. This year's mainly been exactly what you said. I mean, we granted the year of participation waiver in all of our sports. That took a lot of time and discussion. We have a COVID hardship committee that's dealing right now with students who don't meet our eligibility standards. Schools can send in, a form and documentation, that maybe the student had COVID, or maybe they were taking care of a COVID patient, or maybe they just had internet issues. And, so we're trying to go through all those and try to be as student friendly as possible to get these students eligible to participate. And then even things like just our overall eligibility rules. We have some rules that are pretty black and white. I mean, in order to play, you need to pass 12 credits with a 2.0 in the last semester. As a second year, you need 24 with a 2.0. But we put in what's referred to as the -6. If you were a full-time student in spring of 20, you get a negative. So you can have a -6. So basically, you can have, if you needed 24, you can be at 18 at this point. So again, just accounting for the fact in that semester, students didn't know what they were opting into. This was thrown upon or thrust upon them in March. We did not put that in for fall because kind of you knew what you were kind of signing up for. Though it wasn't great, you knew it was going to be virtual probably for the most part, at least here in the East. So I think we've done a good job trying to protect the students as much as possible and think about their needs. But yeah, it's been a full year, and I said to Dr. Parker the other day and Mick McDaniel, who's the board chair, it's challenging. And I said, I think the other part is that people will never probably remember is it's challenging that we've never as a group got to meet face to face. We meet via Zoom. We've never had that chance to get in a room and say, hey, let's talk about, rule, Article 5, C2. It's always like this or through email. And to me, that's a little more challenging. I'd like to be in a room with them and a whiteboard and, putting stuff up and talking it through. But, again, you talk about the last piece, Jim, was, just intellectually, it kind of feels like you're getting another degree. It feels like you're growing as an administrator. I mean, I'm 52 now, and it makes me feel like I've learned a lot this year. I think sometimes we plateau. I know, you love to read a lot and we can get out and do things. But I would say that to other people. I mean, take on a challenge that pushes you a little bit. Now, I knew this was going to push me a little bit. I feel really good and comfortable with it now. But at first, you felt a little like that new job, or you felt back like when you're young again. But it's been good. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I would imagine it really impacts your perspective because, you have had 20 years of experience or more than 20 years of experience. But then when you join a committee like this and when you chair a committee like this and you see some of these situations that come up and you think, wow, I've done this and I've sort of, your experience shapes your view, and then you're faced with something you've never even contemplated before.
Yeah, it definitely. There's some things that happen, and again, I say our level, but I'm sure it happens all over the country. But there's some things that happen here, or things you hear from kids, and you think it can't be true, but it is, and it really does. Change your perspective on things, and you really try to, look at it from a student athlete's perspective and what they're going through, or an institution's perspective. And, we've tried to be as accommodating as possible while yet keeping, the mindset that we want. We need to have rules and regulations, but, just trying to help students get through this and quite honestly, some institutions to make it through this, because this is a challenging time for institutions, trying to get through this pandemic.
No doubt. Regardless of the level, it's very challenging. So, final question for me, Troy, is maybe a little broader, maybe a little forward-looking, but I want your perspective really on what one or two of the most pressing issues that you think there are out there, specifically as it relates to two-year college athletic departments.
I think the one we were just kind of talking about, and I don't like it, but it's real, is I think COVID is, some schools are going to use COVID as the reason to get rid of their athletic department at the two-year level. And I think we're seeing that even at, the four-year level, the NAI level, whatever it may be, maybe not athletic programs, but some teams that we've seen go away, and, COVID maybe being used as the excuse, and maybe it is. I don't want to mean it's not the reason, but I just see it at our level that there are some programs that are going away. They saying they're going to shut down for the year, but I have a feeling it's going to be more than that. And we've had some that have, closed the doors, and that makes me nervous on our level. What's going to happen with that? State funding. I'm very concerned about that, as I think all levels are. But the community colleges, typically the funding in some states is not probably what it needs to be. The model of the 33 of tuition, state and local funding is probably not in the balance that it needs to be. And I think athletics is the thing, as I've always said, when you go sit at that table, and a lot of us, report in a student affairs division, typically at our level, and you sit around that room, and I tell people all the time, look around the room and tell me which department you don't need. I mean, you can't get rid of admissions, you can't get rid of financial aid, I said, but athletics is the one maybe you don't have to have. And I said, so we need to go into that room and sell why we're here. And so, to answer your question, I just think that's the part we need to be able to go in and sell why we're here and get through this pandemic, and show our worth. And especially at the Division III level, like I am, we're not giving any scholarships to these student athletes. So these kids are all revenue producers in tuition, and, we have dorms on our school. So, the residence hall students, I mean, we have to show that our income, outweighs, what our expenses are. And I think that's important for all schools to be able to show that, because I think that's going to be a big help if you get called into one of those meetings, to be able to, show the benefit of your program, not just in wins and losses and promotions, but in terms of dollars and cents.
I couldn't agree, Troy. I tell you what, I feel like I could talk to you all after. I know that you've mentioned you have 32 inches of snow, so you probably need to get out there and shovel a little bit. I'm grateful to you for taking some time to visit today. Again, I'm grateful to BlueFrame Technology for sponsoring Small College Conversations. And Troy, thanks so much for taking the time to visit with us.
No, thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it. And thanks for what you do for all the small colleges around the country.